Hey everyone, Caddy here, and today I'm going to shout at you all for a few minutes about how great I find Shadow of the Colossus. What many consider to be one of the best games ever made for the PS2, or maybe even of all time. I don't 100% agree with that statement myself, but I can understand it when people say it, and this video today is going to be a bit of a mishmash of review and just random discussion. But before anything else, here's your warning. Spoilers, alright, okay, nice. The thing you need to understand about Team Ico, the original developers of the game, is that they are, at the end of the day, experienced game creators. They make games like they want to. No trend following and little mechanical grace and swiftness to support the gameplay. They created, and still create to this day under new management, raw and emotional minimalistic experiences that sacrifice tightness and satisfaction for the odd clunky questionable thing for the sake of making the player connect with the characters and the world of the game on another level. In their games you're never overpowered and there's rarely a straightforward plot aside from arguably The Last Guardian, and there's never a dull idea or concept. Even better, these concepts are nearly always executed in a giant and elegant, but to emphasize, minimalistic way. They also follow the same kind of themes, such as making towering monsters of worlds that are almost characters themselves, that engulf your characters to make you feel as tiny and insignificant as possible. Player control having a direct connection with the characters' feelings and how they interact with the game world, and using mind-blowing and heavily orchestrated original scores to complement these themes. The important thing to remember though, despite how big these games look, is the minimalism of them, and how everything they do is not necessarily done for the sake of fun or mechanical tightness to satisfy the player. You could be holding the hand of a girl and feeling her weight drag behind you as you hold a trigger button, but then whenever you let go of the trigger button, you will let go of her. Or you could be repeatedly shouting at a large bird dog thing until it learns to obey you and adapt to your puzzle solving. It's that kind of thing. And as you can probably see, this all takes a long time to get right, and there's a reason the team have only officially made 3 games since 2001. They take that extra step in immersive, artistic gaming, and I have personally loved every game they have released so far, despite how polarizing they can be for lots of other people. And while we're on the subject of that, funnily enough, this tweet from Indie Mouse, "I want to snog him," is kind of what inspired this video in the first place. This is not a bitchy response video though, I understand this opinion entirely. These games are not for everyone at all. If you don't emotionally resonate with what you play, then the game fails entirely, which is a negative thing you could say about the devs, but that's fine for the sake of them creating their own art for some people to adore and others to hate. But this tweet kind of gave me the idea to try and explain why I love Colossus so much. I did get this on PS4 anyway and I was going to play it, wasn't planning a video, but now here we are. And this video has been classified as a review for the recent PS4 release on my channel, but to be honest, this isn't 100% truthfully a review, and for the rest of this video I'm just gonna talk about it for a bit and rant off on why I love the game so much on many different levels. The issue with a game like this is that they carry way more impact at the time they come out. It depends on the current gaming climate heavily, and so because of that, with stuff like Titan Souls, nearly entirely boss-heavy games like Cuphead, games relying on high levels of visual spectacle and experience-driven games being more popular than ever nowadays, unfortunately the impact Shadow of the Colossus once had over 13 years ago has died down a bit, which does make it feel a little bit different playing it nowadays. But to briefly conclude my thoughts of this PS4 remaster of the original PS2 classic, if you loved the game all those years ago, then you'll love it even more now. It's the definitive edition of the game that uses the PS4's power in all the correct ways without overcrowding the experience. Plus it controls a little bit better, which is very nice. It feels a lot more responsive, there's a few more things to do and collect to change up the game a little bit, and it's just fantastic. With the PS4 Pro you can play it in 4K if you wish, or you can play it in 60 FPS 1080p. Either way, it's an awesome update to what the PS2 one did. But if you weren't a big fan of the game back then, or haven't played the game yet at all, I'd recommend you give this caution. Even though I love it personally, I don't think as a general video game it's as perfect as everyone says it is, and it's definitely not for everyone. If you want to give it a try, play it with an open mind and don't let the hype overtake you. I mean, Boss 15 for instance is complete fucking trash and one of the most tedious, boring, repetitive fights in the world, where the target never stops moving, the game expects you to get to the most awkward parts of the body, and the Colossus flings you off constantly when you're an inch away from winning the fucking fight. It takes minutes upon minutes to climb back up to where you need to get to if you fall off, and even then it's ridiculously cryptic how you climb up in the first place. Fuck this Colossus. But with all of that said, I would still give this version of the game a 9 out of 10. I still adore the game, but the impact and spectacle of it really only has a one-off appeal, which is how I felt about it even back then. You could apply this even to Ico itself. Not one game looked or felt like this in 2001, but now, yeah. What's Shadow of the Colossus about though? What do? You begin as a young man, Wander, carrying his dead love towards a forbidden land into a temple. You place her on an altar, speak to some strange deity to ask them how to resurrect her, and then you're set off on a quest to brutally murder all of these larger-than-life colossi to bring her back to life, which is what Dormin, this higher being almost acting like a god, tells you to do. And you as the player have no choice but to blindly follow its directions despite how you feel about it. The gameplay itself is about killing these behemoths, each with their own distinctively different approaches and methods to killing them, that also mix up different platforming puzzles into the battles to make them all unique and unforgettable encounters. As you figure out how to outsmart and climb the beasts by either using the environment against them or weakening them to get them to drop, allowing you to grab their insanely realistic grabbable hair and clamber up to protruding stone armor all over their body, you have to reach these different glowing weak points all over the Colossi and then stab them until they fall, which doesn't sound too exciting, but combined with the music, all of these encounters become some of the grandest, most epic and often tensest boss fights in video game history as you clutch on for dear life, with your finger held down on the R2 button, getting just as tired as your character desperately grasping on while being flung around like an annoying fly. Sword stabbing has a special knack that requires a certain amount of patience and timing to get right and get the most powerful attack possible, so learning how each Colossus behaves and how they try shaking you off is vital to finishing fights faster with stronger attacks. Also keep an eye on your stamina meter and when the Colossus shakes around, because you need to know when to grab and hold on and climb onto the thing so that you don't fall off, and when to run across its armor and its back, because you need to save the stamina for when you get to its weak points. You also can use the sword as a beacon to guide your way to your next target. You can use a bow and arrow to attract the enemy or hit weak points, use a horse to get around the wasteland, or even during the fights as you slay 16 of these poor magnificent beings that often have no interest in hurting you until you attack them, and all for the sake of your quest to save your love. The gameplay and story mesh together so well, and not just for the sake of meshing with it. With the ambiguity of the story, Team Eco want you to have some kind of fun riding around and figuring out how to kill these creatures as a game, but the only way you could possibly enjoy what you're doing in the first place is to be as blissfully ignorant to why you're doing it as possible. The ambiguousness really helps in that sense. You don't really know who you are, what you're like as a person, where you come from, how your love died, how she would even feel if she came back to life and found out what you did to save her and if any of it was worth it in the first place, so it's mostly all left up to you and how it makes you feel to determine how good of a time you have with the game. Not necessarily a fun time, but a good time going through the experience and one to reflect on as you ask yourself if what you're doing for the sake of someone already dead is worth it for this much more devastation. And once the ending rolls around and you find out you were being used from the start to resurrect Dormin as a new shell for his soul that was split up by the Colossi, it's even more depressing. This not only makes the gameplay experience more questionable and involving, but also way more ominous in the slightly ambiguous story itself, with many things left untouched. You start the game with black shadows attempting to attack you, and then you scare them off just from the sight of your sword you'll be using to do your bidding, which is the same sword you later discover that sealed Dormin away in the first place. And when we later find out that the shadows are referred to as cursed undead, does that mean that they are servants to Dormin, protecting him and trying to kill any other random human that wanders in so that they can join their ranks? Is that why they escaped at the start of the game? Because once they saw your sword, they realized you could resurrect and make their master whole again if they just let Wander go off and kill the beasts. I mean, this sacred land is totally empty and has been known to mortals for generations as a forbidden zone, so it has to be forbidden for a reason, whether you intended to use this sword to free Dormin or not. And despite Dormin, the deity, using you from the start to kill each of the Colossi acting as his split up soul so he can come back from wherever he's sealed, not only does he warn Wander at the start that there's serious consequences on what he'll do, but even after coming back to life and looking big, scary, evil and killing the other humans that arrived to take Wander back home before he got resurrected, he also even keeps his promise and brings Wander's love back to life. I honestly don't think Dormin in this game is the bad guy despite his appearance. I mean, like the Colossi, I think he's just massively misunderstood. And I reckon that in all of this, the humans in this game are the real enemies. You can't really say Wander's the bad guy because he's just acting on his deepest emotions out of desperation and fear. And okay, Dormin did exploit that for sure, but why exactly was Dormin locked up in the first place? It's never really made clear. Wander had obviously heard in his tribe back home that this forbidden land existed, but also must have heard something about Dormin resurrecting people, so he couldn't be that bad, surely. When you see him in the flesh finally at the end of the game as well, he doesn't do anything too evil, and why did the humans that sealed him with this special sword decide to split his soul into these innocent creatures that had no choice and can only be killed in order for someone to retrieve the soul? At first, I thought the Colossi were created specifically to seal away Dormin, but now I'm not so sure. The bodies are even seen in the credits once Dormin is sealed away again by the humans, so maybe Dormin has tried to escape before and the humans just keep bringing the creatures back to life just to exist as catalysts for the split up soul of Dormin, never ending death against their will from any human that comes in and tries to resurrect him. And hey, maybe that's what the shadow creatures are at the start of the game. Every time you kill a Colossus, an extra shadow creature is seen standing over you in pity, so maybe these are the past versions of the souls of the Colossi, begging you not to kill them all over again like the last human that probably came in and took the sword to try and resurrect a loved one, but then when they saw the sword and realizing there'd be no reasoning with you, they were scared away and just backed off. And if the theories linking this game to Eco as a prequel are true, with the horned baby coming into life as the first ever cursed child that Eco is a far descendant of hundreds of years later, all that together makes the humans look really fucking shitty. I mean, look at Eco even. The humans lock the poor guy away just because he has horns, something that they have done to hundreds of other children before him. And for what? Just because it's possible they're descendants of a totally innocent baby that was birthed from a deity that kept his end of the bargain and felt it better to put the Colossi out of their misery? The horned children are no different from anyone else and yet are outcasted, and they've got nothing to do with Dormin at all, so why can the same thing not be said about Dormin himself? He also has blue eyes, not typically evil. He communicates to you from the sun and provides directions whenever you stand in the sunlight. Sun coming from the heavens isn't seen as typically evil either. And much like the Colossi, he only attacked when he was being attacked. He was defending himself. He never harmed the innocent, the dead lady at that part of the game either. Only the humans that locked him up, and maybe have locked him up multiple times for no reason. Ultimately though, whatever the theory, your character Wanda is the victim in all of this, and whatever the backstory is between the humans and Dormin, you ultimately do all you do for fucking nothing, and that's the most depressing thing of all. Much like the game world tells you all the time, you are insignificant. And that is why the game is structured like it is. None of these beautiful graphics and outright stunning levels of detail mean a fucking thing in the long run. You aren't exploring a vast populated world with many side quests and things to do. You aren't even sightseeing. You're on a mission to save your love, whether in a selfish or heroic way depends on the player. The game doesn't want you to feel enriched and satisfied roaming around. There's no music in these parts even, just atmospheric silence, wind noises, birds chirping, and plenty of time for you to reflect on everything that you've done and everything you're going to do. I mean, have you ever noticed with the guiding light of your sword, when you have it on its strongest signal, leaves little burn marks depending on where you point? This kinda looks like a kid with a magnifying glass and sunlight burning innocent ants just because they can, doesn't it? You are left to think about what you're doing from the second you start. I mean, when you kill the Colossi, they don't disappear. They only lose their luminescent color to their eyes, and the game lets the magnitude of your actions sink in whenever you ride past the areas you've already been to and see them dead, exactly where you killed them, not even rotting away. And in the heartbreaking scene where Aggro falls off the bridge, your only other loyal companion for the whole game, never questioning you, that then lets you realize how alone you are in this endeavor. The team also did not need to put this insane level of gorgeous detail into the world for as little you get to interact with it, but they do anyway, to remind you that you are intruding on a content and luscious world that doesn't need anyone poisoning it, which is also why you never blow shit up or even fight other people or animals. It would ruin the point of the long, depressing journey you are on. To even increase your max health, you need to reap from one of the few other colourful living things in the world aside from the plants and a few other animals. You steal and consume fruit in the middle of the desert. And yes, to be fair, this is a lot of the gameplay, running around barren locations with not much going on, but the game wants you to dread the journey. It wants you to enjoy the action and puzzle solving that most of the game has to offer for sure, but not to enjoy the sensation of rushing off on an adventure to kill these things in the first place. And once you reach each Colossus, it doesn't fare much better for the dread. Whenever you're traveling, you're never quite sure if you're nearing the beast or not, heightening the tension of the creatures suddenly appearing, and the tension of the sad inevitable fight you'll soon be having building up. Then when you least expect it, this follows up with a grand reveal of a gigantic monster, and then the music. My god, the music. The score is one of my favourites of all time, and for good reason. And when it's not busy being grandiose and epic, it never holds back with its emotional gut punches when it needs to, especially in those moments where you just get to sit back and watch the flying Colossi, for instance. That theme that kicks in and makes you realise this is a beautiful thing. Why the fuck am I doing this? When you finally slay the creature and get coated with the last spray of inky, thick black blood, there's no fanfare, no congratulations, the music cuts out for a second, the final stab reverberates to accentuate what you just did, and then the somber, melancholy music kicks in, and dude, it's so good. Your stamina meter goes up a little bit after each fight, but at what cost? It just makes the other Colossi easier to kill. I mean, that's kind of fucked up, isn't it? You feel more depressed as the game goes on, but you've already come this far and done this much, so you might as well keep going. You don't want the deaths of these creatures to be for nothing at all. And then the game ends, leaving you as empty as a corpse, and that's why at the end of this long rambling mess of a script, I love Shadow of the Colossus so much, and it's that much better now it's on PS4. The only question I have now is where Eco is, then the holy trinity of Team Eco can be complete for the best system they could possibly be on, so get on that, Sony, I'm waiting for it. If it's your birthday today while watching this video, happy frickin' birthday to you, and please remember to stay beautiful. Hey everybody, and thanks so much for watching this video on Shadow of the Colossus on PS4. Hope you enjoyed it, and special thanks to all of these people on screen that have helped support this show through all of the bullshit that YouTube have tried to pull and everything else. Thank you so much, every single one of you, and special thanks to the special, ultra amazing, top tier Patreon supporters: Omar Matu, Basil, Patrick Ferguson, Andy Ellis, Robert Alamsha, I Have a Portal Gun, Gamerman, Molly Fry, Andy Herrera, Exopaz, Kyle Way, Thomas Olson, Mills Kahai, Alicia Knightley, Super Spyro Fan 2010, Daniel Leon, Jane Ives, Mitchell Reed, A.D. Thornton Smith, Oblivion Rising, Noxious, Ellen Ripley, Kirsten B, QB, Nathan Young, and Nicole Ganara. Thank you so much, every single one of you.